your faith in this administration's ability. Well, that's a message from President Buhari to the nation as Nigerians celebrate Christmas. Another program tonight will get answers to your questions on the 2021 budget. How will it improve livelihood? How will it be funded? Have we been able to cut the cost of governance? And much more. Hello everyone and welcome. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Hikulu. It's the day before Christmas here in Lagos, Nigeria, and for a year that blew every nation away, or more like a year that blew COVID-19 every nation's way, there's always something to be thankful and joyful for still. In fact, there's a Christmas message from President Muhammadu Buhari to Nigerians, felicitating with Christians in particular on the commemoration of the birth of Jesus Christ. For the President, the values of Christmas are needed in our country at this time when we're confronted with diverse challenges like rising spate of armed banditry, kidnappings, insurgency, economic recession, and upsurge of COVID-19 infections. You know, of the 16-paragraph Christmas message to Nigerians, the President devoted about half of it to security. That's over 7 paragraphs in all, and here's part of what the President said. For me, providing security for all residents in the country remains an article of faith. It formed a vital segment of this administration's 3-point agenda right from inception, and we must follow through with it. He went on to say, let us use this season of goodwill and joy to renew our faith in the ability of this administration to make a lasting difference in the lives of our hard-working people. Well, the President also asked all citizens and residents to adhere strictly to non-pharmaceutical prevention guidelines of regular hand washing, wearing of face masks, and social or physical distancing with a view to mitigating the spread of coronavirus during the Yuletide. You know, Christmas is in the air, quite all right, but so is COVID-19 as well, which is why the President will not be hosting the usual Christmas homage by religious and community leaders in the FCT. So there won't be much activity at the presidential villa tomorrow. And here in Lagos, Governor BudgIT says he has recovered from COVID-19 after testing negative for the virus. He described his fight against the virus as moderate. And just like the president, he's asking that people observe the laid out COVID-19 preventive measures and submit to a test as soon as symptoms appear. Well, this is what he said. I am equally grateful to the medical personnel who have cared for me over the last 2 weeks since my COVID-19 diagnosis, and to you, the good people of Lagos State, for your well wishes and prayers regarding my health. He also talked about his experience in isolation and so much more. Well, the governor, who is the chief incident commander of the state, asked all establishments to adopt a no mask, no entry policy. He also says the state government will bring the full weight of the law to bear on those flouting COVID-19 rules. It's a new normal, as they say, and we've seen nations throw all they can muster at the health and economic effects of COVID-19. Countries have gone into varying degrees of recession, and Nigeria is not left out. In fact, the mission for governments now is to get out of recession as soon as possible using one of the most vital weapons, money, or what economists call expenditure. Well, Nigeria has a plan. It is called the Budget of Economic Recovery and Resilience. It's our spending plan for 2021, the year which the government says that we will be out of recession. Well, both chambers of the National Assembly, that's the Senate and the House of Representatives, have passed the budget. And as a quick recap, what was passed at Monday's special plenary is a 13.588 trillion naira budget against the 13.08 trillion naira appropriation bill, which was presented by the president. Well, the budget in itself is not the funds, really. It's just documents, a document that lays the plan for spending the funds. Now, before you spend the fund, you need to earn it. And while you spend, we need to be sure we're spending on the right things. That's a breakdown of the 2021 budget for you. You see statutory transfers. That's what was passed, by the way. Debt service and sinking funds. You see the amount, 3.3 trillion naira. Recurrent expenditure, what was tweaked during the appropriation process, a total of 13.588 or 59 if you're approximating. But take a look at the deficit, 5.7 trillion naira. That's about 500 billion naira difference from what was passed. And here is a comparison between 2020 and 2021 budgets. So we have gone through your concerns about the budget, and we'll be tackling them tonight. We have seen the details of that proposal, well, some of the details. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. That's our conversation for tonight. And joining us to take a look at this, we have Senator Ajibola Basiru, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And here in Lagos, Mr. Gabriel Okewo, Principal Lead at BudgIT. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Politics Today. Well, Senator, let me begin with you because most of the action went down at the National Assembly. But just for Nigerians to know where this bill is before it becomes an act, has the past budget been forwarded to the President just yet?
I believe it must have been transmitted to the President today. As at yesterday night, I had conversation with the Clerk of National Assembly, and they were assured that the necessary administrative work to ensure its transmission to the President would have been completed by midnight today. So I believe the budget must have been transmitted to Mr. President.
Right. Now, taking a look at the timeline, really, because last year, this government promised to return the budget cycle to January, December, and that happened. In fact, the President presented the budget last year on October the 8th. It was passed December the 5th, and eventually the President, signed the dotted lines on December the 17th. But that has changed this year. The President submitted 8th of October, same as last year. But the process didn't end until Monday when both chambers passed it. And we're talking 24th of December, the President is yet to assent. So what happens to that January to December budget cycle? I know that the capital part of the 2020 budget will be moved to March the 31st. But what happens to that cycle, really? Help Nigerians understand.
Nothing untoward had happened to the budget cycle. Today is 24th day of December. You are looking at a situation whereby a new budget should come in place by 1st of January, and that is pretty about 6 or 7 working days. I think that number of days is enough for Mr. President to look at what has been passed, particularly when you realize that the passage of the budget is actually a bipartisan thing with consensus on the part of the executive and legislature. There is really nothing much than for us to ensure that what was passed was agreed upon, and then for the President to put in place. Then I also think there is a need to make a clarification on the 2020, appropriation and 2021 budget. What the National Assembly has done is to extend implementation of the capital aspect of the 2020 budget to March 31st, 2021. This is as a result of the fact that substantial funds have been released to MDA for implementation of the capital aspect, and it is felt that based on past experience, if the National Assembly will not allow the implementation, the procedure of returning funds to the Treasury may lead to propensity to mismanagement and misappropriation of funds. So in the interest of integrity, in the interest of probity and transparency, the implementation of only the capital aspect of 2020 budget is extended to 31st of March. So there will be 2 budgets, so to say, in the area of capital expenditure running concurrently between January 1 and March 31, 2021.
So you're confident the President will assent before the end of this year? Because I recall last year it took the President 12 days after it was passed to assent to that 2020 budget. But you say that he will sign before the end of the year, so we'll take that. But before I get Mr. Okewo's opening statements, let me just ask you, looking at this whole process, how well were you able to cut the cost of governance in this appropriation process for the 2021 budget? Senator Basiru, I'm not sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh, I thought the question is for the...
No, it's for you
man.
before I get Mr. Okelwo's opening statement. Just let me get your response first, then we'll come to our Lagos studio.
Yes, when it comes to the issue of the analysis of the present budget, you will discover that the capital aspect of the budget had actually been improved upon. If you notice that about 500 billion increment was made in regard to capital expenditure, this is in line with the desire of the National Assembly to ensure that we begin to increase the capital aspect of our budget, because that's the only way we can be able to galvanize our economy, have necessary impact in terms of infrastructure development that would catalyze the development of our people. And the recurrent expenditure, yes, still much manageable, but as you know that we're in the process of amending the constitution and making certain radical changes possibly in the structure of our government. I think this would definitely be a right direction to take to ensure that ultimately we have the capital expenditure year in, year out much bigger than that of the recurrent expenditure, and that will be the way to have a path to growth and development of our people.
Okay, Mr. Okelwo, you have seen this whole process. In fact, Budget released a document detailing and analyzing the budget. Looking at what went down at the National Assembly, well, what started off at the MDAs, do you think, because people say this presents an opportunity for this government to see if they can cut the cost of governance, free up funds to use for other things. Do you think this was achieved in the budget?
Well, as of now, we've not seen the details of the budget as passed. So if we still going to talk based on the highlights that we have seen in the press, I'm not sure. And I heard you putting that question forward to Senator Bashir. What we have seen, yes, we have seen increase in capital projects, capital expenditure, which is something that every Nigerian wants to see. But we have not seen that being a result of reduction in the cost of governance on one side to be able to then increase the cost of what goes into capital expenditure on the other side, which is what we want to see, not necessarily us increasing it, which is going to be at the end of the day a result of us amassing more deficit and more borrowing to be able to assure this side of the increase that we are seeing. What we want to see is that COVID era, in this era, a lot of establishment has capitalized on this to consolidate on their resources, right? And we were looking forward to that even in governance, right? Can we, in this era, consolidate resources? But from details, we have not seen the full document. But from what we have seen, we have also seen that not just the capital expenditure was increased, but statutory transfer to was increased. Now, by the time we begin to look into the nitty-gritty of those statutory transfers, we are going to see already, from what we read, budget that goes into, let's say, National Assembly, for example, has been increased from 128 billion to 134. That's not confirmed until we see the document.
I think you have hit one of the hearts of the matter, if there's anything like that. But we have to go on a break now. When we return, you mentioned these issues. Senator Basiru, of course, understands this, so he can give us an insight and maybe justify what we have seen. So we'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, we'll touch on these issues. But on a programming note, we'd like to tell you that your multiple award-winning channels television will be hosting a special Sunrise Daily Christmas program on Christmas Day, which is tomorrow, Friday, December the 25th. It's loaded with entertainment, including a comedy segment. So join our team of anchors from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Thank you for staying with us. We still have Senator Ajibola Basiru, Chairman, Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs, joining us from our Abuja studio, and Mr. Gabriel Okelwo, Principal Lead Budget. You can tell we're talking about the budget. And just before we went on that break, Mr. Okelwo, let me let you land. You were talking statutory transfers. And just to show Nigerians what's in that particular headline of the budget, you see there are different areas. There's the National Judicial Council, there's NDDC, UBE, National Assembly, which you talked about, Public Complaints Commission, INEC, NHRC, NEDC, and Basic Health Care Fund. That's for statutory transfers. But you are quite concerned, and What are your concerns, if you can land on that?
Yeah, really. So when we're looking at Senator Bashir made mention of increase, the effort the National Assembly put into increasing the cost of capital expenditure, which is acceptable, but what we are saying is what we want is not to increase capital expenditure in a way that increase the deficit of the budget size. What we want to see is that we are able to reduce, we're able to cut cost of governance on one side to be able to increase, what goes into capex. And logically, really, I am leader of an establishment, right? Logically, to a very large extent, our overhead has reduced since March, right? And how? We have not been in the office, so the cost of running diesel has not been the same. Aside from internet that we left to be the same, but our electricity bill has dropped drastically because the numbers of ACs that is on in the office is not like it used to be. So there is a reasonable justification for us at this time to be able to cut the cost of governance. But we have not seen that, and we are really looking forward to the details of the budget as part so that we can break it down and do an analysis on it.
Right. Well, we have Senator Basiru here, and he has seen that, so maybe you can give us some insight. So, Senator Basiru, last year, the budget for the National Assembly in statutory transfers was 128 billion naira. This year, or at least for 2021 budget, it's still 128 billion naira. That's on the one hand. On the other hand is the fact that a lot of people are asking, open the National Assembly budget. Let's see what's really inside. So maybe for one more time, can you justify this?
I think with all sense of responsibility, anybody saying the budget of National Assembly is not open, I don't understand what you mean by that. You mentioned the budget was 128 billion last year, 128 billion, this year, statutory transfer. Where is the hidden? If you can have the figure, then what is not open? The truth is this. I think there are a lot of misinformation and a lot of misconception even around the budget of the National Assembly. 128 billion as a portion of an arm of government in last year amount to less than 1% of the total budget appropriated last year. This year again is even less than 0.8% if you benchmark 128 billion as against a budget of 13.5 trillion naira. So you are saying that an arm of government with elected representative, with full bureaucracy, with institution to run, operating on a less than 1% of the budget is actually the problem of a cost of governance in Nigeria. It will amount to, if you cancel even the entire allocation of less than 1% go to National Assembly, what savings have we been able to make in the area of cost of governance? The truth is that when we want to talk about cost of governance, it's not about casting aspersion on that very important arm of government, which is the legislative arm, and that is actually the bulwark of democratic governance. You should look at the MDAs that is in existence, more than 40 ministries, you have department of government, you have agencies. As far as 6 years ago, Orosai panel has come up with the need to streamline the various MDAs, which of course will necessitate the executive trimming down its organization. So when it comes to issue of cutting cost of governance, yes, and for it will help us govern development, but it is not about making ill-informed analysis as to the spending and what goes to the National Assembly.
Senator Basiru, when we look at,
in fact, about 0.7% of the population should not be what could be causing
Senator Basiru,
of cost of governance in Nigeria.
If you say 0.7%, pardon me, let me just put this in. So you say that the budget of the National Assembly is just 0.7%, but looking at the population of the National Assembly, it is 0.0004% of the national population. I'm getting somewhere. That's on one hand.
I think it will be pedestrian to
let me land, Senator Basiru. You will respond. I have a couple of issues to put in here. Secondly, you will respond, but I just need to put this point in. Secondly is the fact that when we look at the budget itself,
It's about the importance of the National Assembly as an institution of democracy. And when you just start
Senator Basiru, if you would let me talk.
Legislative arm of government.
Also, when you look at the statutory transfer part, you just see that 128 billion is budgeted for the National Assembly. It's not quite clear those items. So if you say that the budget is open, we don't see the items. We don't see how much is going to overhead, how much is going to diesel, how much is going to printing. I actually went to the Budget Office website for your previous budget, and there was nothing regarding that. It was just a lump sum. It's a zero-based budget, Senator Basiru. So we expect to see how you built it up. So where can we find the details of your budget?
I'm not sure of your knowledge of finance and economics with respect to you. What you need to do, you have freedom of information as an organization bent in knowing the truth about it. Go to the clerk of National Assembly. No legislator, not even the Senate president, is involved in spending money of the National Assembly. It is the job of people who are in the public service of Nigeria, headed by clerk of National Assembly. If you want to get into it, how much goes into personnel in National Assembly? How much goes to National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies? How much goes into the National Assembly Service Commission? How much goes into running the National Assembly and the Edifice National Assembly? I challenge journalists. I've done this several times before. Find out, rather than just seeing National Assembly as an assemblage of 467 legislators. No, even as a senator, the National Assembly pay for 5/8 for me and do so for all other people too.
Senator Basiru, you would recall that during the life of the 8th Assembly, Senator Basiru, you will recall that during the life of the 8th Assembly, they made their budget open. That's when the term open budget came up. Senator Basiru, I'm trying to put in my point here. You will recall during the time of the 8th Assembly, they put out their budget. That's when the term open budget for National Assembly came up. We have not seen the 9th Assembly do such. So, which is why I bring up that issue. But let me bring up Mr. Okeowo. I mean, you've listened to these issues. You are an economist. He says that we might not have knowledge, but clearly you have knowledge. So please, if you could respond to that.
I guess my response would be, why do we have to use the instrument of Freedom of Information Act to request for detail that is meant to be in the public sphere, right? And I'm so sorry, because I didn't mean for this conversation around the budget of National Assembly is what we discuss here in, year out, right? However, the National Assembly needs to begin to understand that we are going to hammer on them because they are actually the representative of the people, right? So if right here on a live program by Channels TV, I think it was Ad Copy or so, I heard, and it's even recorded on my phone, a senator says that he takes home about ₦1 million per day here on a live national program, right? So if all of those conversations are out, they are going to be, the National Assembly is going to be doing itself a disservice by not putting the information out. It might be possible that ₦1 million is not going to your pocket. It might be possible that there are fragments of expenditure or sectors that has to go to. But can you make this open, for God's sake? And don't let us use the instrument of Freedom of Information Act. In this work, really, when we use the Freedom of Information Act, let's ask ourselves, how many government parastatals respond to FOI when it is raised to them? And because they know that the law says that if they don't respond in 7 days, you can approach the court of law. How many civil society organization or journalist or media agency has the capacity and the resources to go to take any government parastatal to the court of law because of an information? Can you just put this thing out, right? The same way we will go to the website of the Budget Office of the Federation and see the detailed budget of the country. Can we see that? And not only National Assembly. Can we see the expenditure budget of NNPC? Can we see the expenditure budget? Can we see the breakdown budget of other government-owned enterprises? That is what we are talking about. Nobody is here to hammer on National Assembly, but we believe that they can lead by example because they are the representative of the people. They are there not by themselves. They are there because certain number of us in our constituency so agree that since all of us, about 3 million or 5 million of us in this constituency, cannot all sit in the National Assembly, can you go and represent us there? Then you should go there and represent us.
Okay, Senator Basiru, we're in our closing moments. In fact, we have just about 20 seconds to close. But I'd like you to answer this question he raised, which I believe a lot of Nigerians have raised. Will the National Assembly be willing to put out those details?
The National Assembly represented by this clerk of National Assembly should be inquired. I don't know how 128 billion is spent, and I say it with all sense of responsibility. So if you're asking me to tell you what I don't know, and what I also know that
no, the question is if the National Assembly will be willing to put out.
There's a bureaucracy that you must address your questions to. I'm not in a position to tell you the budget and how National Assembly budget is spent. I'm not part of the bureaucracy.
Senator Basiru, this is not about how it is spent. This is a direct question. If the National Assembly will be willing to put out those details, it's just a yes or no question. Would you be willing to put out those details?
Is it elected representative? Is it elected representative or the bureaucracy in charge of the budget?
Well, Senator Basiru, you have raised another question. So we'll continue this conversation hopefully sometime soon. But Senator Basiru, would like to thank you so much for your time. Senator Basiru, I promise we'll have this conversation sometime soon, but thank you so much for sparing your time to shed some light on this process, as well as Mr. Okelwo of BudgIT. Thank you so much also for sharing your thoughts with us on the program. So that's our show for tonight. The conversation is definitely not over. But on a programming note, yet again, don't forget that by 7 a.m. tomorrow, we're bringing you a special Sunrise Daily Christmas program, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Don't miss it, because it will be packed with so much fun, entertainment, comedy, all in the spirit of Christmas. Well, that's the program for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Pikelu. Do have a Merry Christmas, and please stay safe.